Hello, family. Welcome to Toast to Love. I am Isaac McJimsey,
And I am Jackie McJimsey.
and we're back for the second half of our first season. We took a little break, but now we're back, and we got some great episodes coming up. Today, we're dealing with unforgiveness and resentment, and hopefully moving towards healing. Unforgiveness can be nasty, it can be ugly. We've all experienced some level of unforgiveness in our lives, and so we just want to talk about that today and what that looks like. You know, family, we see a lot of clients, we see a lot of couples coming into our practice, and one of the first things we try to evaluate is their level of forgiveness. What level of are they forgiving each other? And so it's just so important to walk through forgiveness. There are so many tools we can give them. You know, we do what? Love and respect. We do 5 love languages. All of those. I mean, we do conflict management. All are excellent tools, but none of these tools will be effective unless you're able to forgive.
Right.
Forgiveness unlocks everything. And so this first part of this session, we want to talk about unforgiveness, and particularly individual, just you working on the habit of forgiveness. We believe it's a habit. So Jackie's going to walk us through a definition of what we feel unforgiveness is, and we'll talk about that for a little bit and work through that to resentment, and then hopefully give some tips for healing.
So, what is unforgiveness? I'm going to read you what we've looked up. Is unforgiveness is a state of emotional and mental distress that results from a delayed response in forgiving an offender. It is characterized by indignation, bitterness, and demand for punishment or restitution. Unforgiveness creates a domino effect that negatively impacts every part of us, including our emotions, thoughts, behaviors, body, spirit, and relationships.
Yeah, unforgiveness is, I've heard many definitions, spiritual definitions. I think the most famous one was the person who offended you. Unforgiveness is like wanting that person to take poison, but you taking it yourself. That's a great analogy. We want to take it in a slightly different manner. We feel like unforgiveness is a prison. Talk about that a little bit.
We feel like it's a prison. And what that is that the prison is the penalty that you want your mate to pay for what they've done to offend you. You can't break, when you think about it, when you go into a prison, you're locked up, you can't break free, you're stuck, you're constantly thinking about what you did that ended you in the spot. And it continuously plays over in your mind.
That's right.
And it can it drives you crazy. It can lead to insanity. You have to understand that not only you're in that prison, you're trying to put your mate in the prison, but in putting your mate in that prison, you put you and your family and the people who know you and surround you in the same prison.
Hey, one of the techniques we use with the person who's been offended, we always ask them the question, and you can do this, not play this, but do this with yourself. What penalty could you require of the person who hurt you? And when I ask that, I always ask that to the person offended, like, hey, do you want me to shoot this guy or lady? Do you want me to slap him? What penalty was going to make you feel better?
You would take their blood, to beat them up.
And invariably, there is no penalty because you love the person, you care about them so much. And so they have this aha moment. There is no penalty. And so this is the little dirty little trick we play with unforgiveness. We put both ourselves in the prison.
That's right.
And that's the penalty. The penalty is I won't let it go. I won't release you, but I also won't release myself.
I think we've noticed in our practice with talking to people that unforgiveness there normally is an offense or something that's led to a situation that's got you and your mate on a bad spot, in a bad place, don't know what to do next. The crazy thing about it is we don't normally see them then. It's normally once resentment has set in. And once resentment has set in and I just can't stand the way you look, smell, I don't like the words coming out of your mouth. Nothing you can do can make me feel better. When that happens, a lot of times that's when people say, you know what, we might need to get some help. But when it needs to happen is when the offense happens. When you do something to offend your mate, or you've got something that you need to be forgiven for, that's when you need to come and seek some professional or outside help to get help with handling that situation before resentment sets in.
So we believe forgiveness is a habit that we become. We become forgiveness, just like love. God is love. And so it's not only do we get the benefits of his love, he is the essence of love. Mm-hmm. Same way with forgiveness. Mm-hmm. We become forgiveness. It becomes a way of being, but it's a habit that you have to practice regularly. And many of us, and I'll say this, we get out of practice.
Oh, yeah.
And so it leads to, as Jackie was saying, resentment, a prolonged period of time where you don't forgive, whether it's your spouse, whether it's your parent, whether it's your child, whether it's a sibling, a prolonged time where you don't release it. We develop what we call resentment. And in resentment, there, Jackie explained, you get bitter, you get hard. You know, you've taken the poison and now it's taking effect.
Oh, yeah.
And so, you know, you keep retelling the same story. And something that comes up, and I want Jackie to talk about this, is with a couple that is experiencing unforgiveness, they play this game called tit for tat.
And in tit for tat, what are you doing in tit for tat? Well, you didn't cook dinner, so I'm not going to take out the trash. That back and forth banter that you do with each other, it's not healthy. It's not. I mean, it's good to banter back and forth from time to time for playing, or right. You know, there is a place for banter in your relationship. But the tit for tat, I'm doing something to just try to get back at you, and I want to hurt you. Because what happens before you get to resentment and unforgiveness is that you build up this wall.
That's right.
And once this wall is up, then when you begin to banter, it's not that love and play banter. It's that I want to get back at you. I'm not happy with you. You done made me mad. And now I'm going to do what I need to do. Every time you say something, it's like, every time you say something, you go back to this argument of what you did to make that person mad. It's like, well, I thought you said you forgave me for it. Well, you thought they forgave you, and they may not know how to forgive you.
Right.
So that and resentment will set in, and then resentment just leads to so many other. I mean, when you start being bitter, when you start being hateful, you're
showing contempt.
You're not the only one that's affected, because then you begin to create an environment of unforgiveness, and the environment of unforgiveness can lead to a whole nother set of, you talking about your children, the way your children act, the way they begin to handle things. It fundamentally changes you as a person when you do not forgive.
I want to throw this in, betrayal and offenses is what can lead to a person needing forgiveness and not getting it. I want to just throw this in about betrayal. We didn't have this on our notes. Betrayal is when you choose something else over your spouse, and betrayal can be infidelity. Betrayal can be
basketball, soccer.
Betrayal can be watching TV over your spouse. Anything that you put over your spouse besides God, that's a betrayal. And so, you know, let's dig deep into this thing called unforgiveness. We all have been offended, hurt, betrayed. Yeah. It could be an unkind word. It could be, I was supposed to cook dinner. I didn't cook dinner. It could be, hey, I forgot to take out the trash. It could be as harsh as saying unkind words. It could be having a full-blown argument where you're blaming. It could be infidelity. It could be, there are several things that can cause us to be offended or hurt. And when those things happen, we have to quickly dive in there and make sure that we resolve those issues, because once resentment sets up in the heart, that's a hard wall to tear down. It's a hard wall to tear down. And many couples, we're seeing the effects of resentment is that they take on a whole different life than what they
Mm-hmm.
imagined. They're doing things differently. They're sleeping in other beds. They're having dinner apart. They're putting up a front that things are good, but
Hey, they're developing relationships with other people that they feel like they can trust, and it's tearing up your relationship. And what's sad about that is that you don't even realize, you're thinking, I'm talking to someone that is going to help me through a situation. They've given me good advice before. But when that person is of the opposite sex and they begin to console you, oh,
That's
I'm
right.
so sorry to hear
That's
that.
right.
I hate that had to happen to you. That's my husband. I'm his wife. He doesn't want anybody else consoling me over a situation that we're having.
That's right.
Together. That's something that we need to do. But when you find that happening, then what tends to happen is you're causing a rift and you're increasing the unforgiveness. It's just gonna grow into something that didn't have to.
And we encourage at this point, we want to put in this plug.
Yeah.
Toast to Love is part of Marriage Uncut. Marriage Uncut is our counseling and coaching business. We counsel and coach couples. We help them walk through forgiveness. We help them get the tools they need to have a flourishing relationship. So at the end of the day, we want relationships flourishing. Our partners are Tanya and Kat Garrett, and they just celebrated 15 years. And so we just want to put that plug in. One of the things they truly believe, and we believe as well, is couples.
Helping couples.
That's the whole thing. And so if you're walking through a tough patch, find a good godly couple that you can trust that can walk you through unforgiveness. Or, hey, come see us at marriageuncut.com. Just wanted to put that plug in. Jackie, at this point, we talked about what unforgiveness is. We looked at resentment, and we feel so important about this topic is that we're going to do a two-parter, but we're transitioning to how does unforgiveness affect you as an individual? How does it affect you?
Well, it's a lot of things it can do. Unforgiveness can cause you to go bursts of anger. It's like, why are you so mad? I just asked you what you're looking at. You may be your husband may be on the computer working, and you go, "Hey, what you looking at?" Because he looks like he's a 10. I'm just, hey, what you looking at? Why are you looking at? What is wrong with you? Those are bursts of anger, right. And your spouse may not even recognize that they're having those bursts of anger. Let me say this too: when we're talking about unforgiveness, it doesn't necessarily mean that you are have something going on with your mate that you need to forgive. It could be something that happened to you in your childhood that could be making you angry.
That's right.
And frustrated, and you don't even realize it, but you're projecting that anger in your relationship, which causes other problems. We are going to do as soon as COVID kind of breaks out, we are going to do a conference or a couple of sessions, intensives with some people, and we'll get you more information on on unforgiveness. How can you help to get rid of the unforgiveness that's in your heart?
Before you go any further, I just want to piggyback on that. For example, if you have unforgiveness for a parent or for a sibling, you can bring that into your marriage. Mm-hmm. And then now you can become triggered because that person may unknowingly do something that reminds you of that parent or that sibling or whatever. And now you like, I'm all right, I'm okay. And obviously you're not. So the first session or the first part of this series, we wanted to be able to talk about how do you forgive yourself, how you walk through that. But we want to give some more signs of, what happens to the body, what happens to you personally when you refuse to forgive.
Along with bursts of anger, randomly getting upset, you can be physically sick. Some of the things, depression, high blood pressure, anxiety, that you're carrying a lot of anxiety. When you start to notice, you might need to we need to do some forgiveness, what we call forgiveness therapy. If you're having some of these problems and it's unexplained, I've never had high blood pressure. I've never had anxiety.
Right.
I've never had some of these things going on. What's wrong with me? Another thing that can happen, you keeping a list of offenses. Hey, did you just you did it again? Did you leave the toilet sit up on a toilet? Did you forgot to wash the dishes? You're not taking out the trash. You're not cutting the grass. I mean,
Right.
It's like, oh wow, I just came in and said hello. How you doing today?
Right.
What's the attacks for?
Right. Running those tallies, I think is so unhealthy, because at the end of the day, I mean, if you're keeping a list, who can live up to the list? And some of those things can be trivial, and then some of those things can be really significant. And so not only you're keeping a tally in your relationship, but you're keeping that tally in your heart. Yeah. And that can lead to not having intimacy. That can affect your sex life. That can affect all these things, just stem from unforgiveness. So, beloved, we want you guys to walk in forgiveness. I want to throw this one in there. The playing the scenes over and over. Man, if you're still talking about something somebody did to you 5 years ago and how they hurt you and how they harmed you, that's an unforgiveness, and you got to let it go. And one of the things we encourage is to reframe the story. The inability to reframe means you're giving that person so much power.
That's right.
In your life. You're giving them the power of what they did, but you're giving them power over your emotions. You're giving them power over your feelings. You're giving that person so much power. And so you want to release them from that so they don't have that authority and power over you.
Hey, let me say this. Isaac and I do counseling and coaching. Well, let me say, we also get counseling and coaching.
That's right.
And one of the things our therapist has said to us before is, what story are you telling yourself?
Oh, that's good, Jackie. Go with it.
Hey, I just ask you what you're doing on the computer. What were you looking at on the computer? What you think I said? Like, I wasn't trying to accuse you of cheating, lying, stealing, or trying to embezzle money from the National Bank. I said just what you was looking at, because you look your intent. What did you tell yourself in those 5 seconds that made you get nasty and upset or yell? And I'm just using that example because it's just a simple something you can use that can happen in day-to-day life. And if you don't get control over your emotions and your feelings and begin to tell yourself a different story, then things can go really sideways really fast.
The stories we tell ourselves that this person doesn't like me, this person isn't for me, when in fact we don't know. We're not aware. And when you're in unforgiveness, you're going to tell yourself the worst case scenario. So be careful. Be careful with that. I want to delve into what effects does unforgiveness have on the brain. We listed before the thing where we keep retelling the same story. That's called rumination, where we keep reinforcing the negative emotion we have with somebody. Somebody cut you off in traffic, and now every time somebody cuts you off, you go to this deep, dark place because you've told yourself a story. I'm gonna be late from work, or I could have been killed in this accident, or just these nasty things.
Instead of saying, hey, I survived that storm. Hey, I lived through that accident. It's just the way you begin to tell yourself that story. Another one is diminished memory. We begin to remain stressed out for long periods of time. We forget what happened in that, what actually happened. And you keep retelling yourself some of the negative sides, and you kind of forget, hey, I did turn right before they hit me and avoided death or imminent danger.
One of the other things that I think is very important is separating what somebody did from the person.
That's right.
We're not the sum total of the things that we do, and we're definitely not perfect people. We're gonna offend, we're gonna sin, we all fall short of His glory. And I think it's important, particularly in your relationship, is that Jackie has no bad will towards Isaac, that she doesn't have bad intentions. Does she have the ability to hurt my feelings? Does she have the ability to wound me? Yes. not intentionally. So we have to separate out a person's actions, not to excuse them, but separate that out from the person. I know who Jackie is. I know she loves me. I know she cares about me. She's just not a perfect person, and neither am I. So separating that thing out and not lumping together the fact that somebody offended or wounded you and make that the sum total of who they are. So guys, we've talked about unforgiveness. We've talked about resentment. Just want to share this small story while we're closing. The Bible says in Matthew 9, in those first 8 chapters, Jesus was healing a man. A man was paralyzed. And so Jesus makes this statement. He asked the man, he says, "You're forgive." Well, he says to the man, "You're forgive." Then he heals the man. And so the religious folk said, "Who is this? Who does he think he is?" And he asked them a question: "Is it more powerful that I forgave him or that I healed him?" And so what he was declaring there was something awesome to me. I love this as a theologian. He was declaring himself as God, the power to forgive and the power to heal. I believe the more powerful thing he did was heal. No, it was forgive. I'm sorry. The more powerful thing that Jesus did was forgive. The most powerful thing we can do is forgive. And guess what, beloved? He gives us that power. We have the power and the authority to forgive, to let go. And so I'm encouraging you this week, and Jackie's going to make a challenge to you, but to get with yourself, No, let's not focus on our spouse quite yet, but let's get with ourselves, because you have the power and the authority, just like Jesus did, to forgive, to let go,
That's right.
to wipe the slate clean, and not just for the person, but for yourselves. To walk in wholeness. So tell us, Jackie, tell us about this challenge as we close out.
What we'd like for you to do is write down a few things that you're not forgiving yourself for. There's things that's happened. What do you need to forgive yourself for? Write those 2 or 3 things down. Then get in the mirror every morning and forgive yourself for those things that you need to forgive yourself for.
Yeah. And
hey, if you want to share, if you like to share, hit us at marriageuncut.com or DM us on Facebook, Isaac McGimsey or Jackie McGimsey. We have LaTanya Garrett or Kat Garrett. You can DM them too. But slide in our DM. Let us know how that worked for you. We don't have to share that with anybody. That's just something we can just kind of have together. But if there's something that you need to forgive yourself for, take time this week. Start today, start tomorrow morning, start tonight. Write down a piece of paper, 2 or 3 things, get in the mirror every morning or afternoon and say, I forgive myself for whatever you've written on that paper.
Family, remember, forgiveness is a habit. And we thank you for taking the time with us. Next week, we'll be talking about how not only just forgiving yourself, but then how do you forgive others? We're going to delve in, finish this thing off in a powerful way. And so we look forward to seeing you next week on Toast to Love.
Bye-bye.